Welcome to Ask Earl Anything. This is the show where your questions make the show. Without your questions, I don't have a show. This is for February 2023. Now, last month I had a couple Ask Earl Anything shows. That was because I did my Ask Earl Anything right before January 1st. I was right on January 2nd, dropped it, and I got a couple more questions that weekend before. So this could happen for this month too. If there are extra questions, enough extra questions, maybe I'll do a second show. Of course, this is a very short month, 28 days. So this month, another thing I want to feature is I want to tell you about is that this month is Black History Month in the United States. And one of the things I've done the last couple of years is I've played R&B soul favorites during the month of February. Now, I don't know if any of you caught that. I didn't make a big deal of it, but it's been something that's been on my heart the last bunch of years as our country's in a lot of racial tension and things because of a lot of different things. And one of the things I acknowledge is that our Black brothers and sisters helped to make the American music of jazz and rock and roll what it is today. So there's no doubt about it. I am influenced by some of the greatest drummers in the world who happen to be Black drummers like Tony Williams, Elvin Jones, Max Roach, and the list goes on. You know, you can talk about Clyde Stubblefield. You can talk about Uriel Jones from Motown, Earl Young from Philadelphia Sound. So I'm doing covers in that vein this month, a lot of covers. And I try to fill the whole month out with covers that are soul and R&B focused and some gospel focused. So we're really going to have a month of a lot of that kind of music this month. So I just wanted to let you know what's going on. That's one thing that's going on. Now, last month, I was on a show called Drum History Podcast, and I talked about the history of drum magazines. My new friend, Bart Vanderzee, invited me on the show. I really enjoyed the time with Bart. It was a great hang. I recommend that you actually watch the show and learn something. The week after my podcast on drum magazines, they had the new publisher of Modern Drummer was on. And I think I was mentioned a few times in that show because we had just done the history of drum magazines. And they kind of asked him some questions about where Modern Drummer's going. One of the interesting things I found out is that they're planning on doing some print magazines. Don't know what the subscriptions are going to be or how they're going to work it out. But they're still pretty much Modern Drummers in a digital format. That's where magazines are going. So for the time being, I've missed a lot of great magazines, a lot of great Modern Drummers last couple of years. I've always loved Modern Drummer magazine. One of them had my good friend Zach Jones in. My friend Dave Jones' son Zach, who plays with Sting, he was actually featured in Modern Drummer, I think October of last year. So anyhow, I did get to read the article though. Another shout out I want to make is to another friend. I don't know where I met him. I met him somewhere in the last 4 or 5 years. We kind of have connected with different musicians in the Nashville, LA circle. And his name is Jim Wagy, and he's starting a YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel is, let me get it right, because I want to definitely give him the shout out he's due, Freedom Music Factory. Now, Jim is a really cool drummer and musician and composer and arranger. And anyhow, one of the things we connected on was, of course, the drums. I want you to check out his channel. As time goes on, his channel is going to get more and more content. One of the cool things is he writes a lot of Christian music in the vein of the 70s and 80s, the styles that he always loved playing. And he asked me to do a drum cover. I just did the drum cover today called I'm Longing, and maybe I'll play a little piece of it in here so you can hear a taste of this song. kind of an Earth, Wind, and Fire kind of vibe to it. But Jim's starting a channel. He's going to feature a lot of content about his music, but also some things about his drums and his studio setup and what he does, you know, how he makes music, because it's very interesting how he makes music. He hires some of the greatest musicians in the world to be on these tracks. So he's got some of the greats from Nashville, bass players, guitar players, percussionists, horn players, arrangers, singers are on his projects. And the other thing is he gets to play drums with them, which is really cool. On this particular track where I'm playing drums, I'm playing along with Luis Conte, famous session musician from LA who played on this particular track, I'm Longing. So I hope you check out the video when it comes out in its entirety and the little taste I'm going to put in here. And I hope you check out Jim's channel, Freedom Music Factory, and become a subscriber, and show him some love, you know, from the community. I think he's going to be producing some really cool things in the future. So 2 shout outs, Bart and Jim, Drum History Podcast and Freedom Music Factory. Okay, with that said, let's jump into some Ask Earl Anything questions. I got a lot of questions this month. Let's start with a question I'm not sure I answered on that short segment. I think I might have skipped it. So I'm going to answer it again very simply. And it's from DG, D-E-D-G-E. DG, don't know how to say it. He said, Hammer, how long have you been playing the drum kit? Well, my official count on how long I've been playing the drum kit is since I was 15 years old. I'm 62, so I add that up to be exactly 47 years I've been playing drums. So I started at 15 and continued right on through. I never stopped playing drums, as all of you know. So 47 years. I wanted to make sure I answered that question. I think I answered it last time, but you know, I am over 60, so you got to give me a break for sometimes missing what I've already covered. So I'm just trying to be thorough. But 47 years is the number. All right, the next question comes from Yuri Jones. Spelled Lori Jones, but I always say it Lori, but it's Yuri. Yuri Jones, my good friend Yuri. And he said, this is a question for Ask Earl Anything. Have you had any experience with rack systems like Gibraltar or Yamaha? Are they worth it? 2 of my kits, a Ludwig and a Yamaha, have undrilled bass drums. And anyhow, he's been putting in his tom on a snare stand. And he's wondering if a rack is the way to go. For the last bunch of years, there's been a drum rack on this kit. This kit has had a drum rack. Now, last year, I've actually had this tom mount for the bass drum. I bought it to replace the one on my other kit, but it was from an export, and it didn't line up with the holes. So I couldn't replace that mounting plate on my bass drum, which is over 40 years old. So anyhow, I eventually found a used one that was the exact match to that, and I replaced it. That was in good working order. So that bass plate has been replaced. And I always intended to resell this or get rid of it at some point. I never did. Last year, I drilled some holes. So since I drilled holes and put this tom mount here on the bass drum, I've kind of removed the rack, but the rack is hidden behind the screen back here. And it's a Gibraltar rack, and it's fine. I use it for rototoms. I've used it for the concert tom kit. I used it on a gig with the Swigs about 5 years ago now, I guess it is. We were playing an outdoor gig, and I realized, outdoor gig on plywood, I realized that the kit wouldn't move if I anchored everything to that rack. I even anchored the bass drum to it, and it worked out great. Do I think I'd want to bring a rack from gig to gig? Not really. I used to have a Pearl rack, Jeff Porcaro rack, and I wish I hadn't gotten rid of that one because I really dug the Jeff Porcaro rack. A friend of mine we traded something. My friend Scott wanted a rack. He ended up getting rid of that rack. I wish I knew he was getting rid of it. I would have taken it back from him. But that rack was very cool. But again, it's only cool if you have a big space. At that time, I didn't have the space to set it up. I recorded my wife's album in an 11 by 11 bedroom. That rack did not fit. It was only out in the garage it sat. And I was living in Coral Springs, Florida at the time. Now I'm living in a different part of Florida, a little bit north, where I have this 3-car converted studio, car garage converted studio. Long and the short of it, racks are good if you have space for them. Racks are a pain in the rear end for taking to gigs. So I don't know what to say to you, Yuri. If you're doing this, I would say, mount off your cymbal stands is easier than getting a rack if you got good cymbal stands. If you're using lightweight cymbal stands like the one on my kit right now, I've been using the Tama Classic hardware for the last month and really digging it on the Gretsch kit. So the Gretsch kit's been having a super vintagey vibe lately with the Tama Classic hardware on the cymbal stands and stuff. But truthfully, I don't want to carry a lot of hardware, so I carry very light hardware. And I do carry the Tama Classic tom stand to mount my tom. So usually I put one of those on. I actually have 2. I have a Ludwig that I can also use if I want to make it a 5-piece. But that's my recommendation. I'm not a big rack guy, so I would say don't buy it unless you're going to keep it in your house. If you're going to keep it in your house, yeah, buy a rack. If you got to travel with it, I don't think it's the way to go, to be honest. Not unless you got roadies. Most of us don't have roadies. Okay, let's see. I've got some questions. This is another question. This comes from Mickey F. Mickey F wanted me to demonstrate. I might save that for the end. He actually wanted me to demonstrate more of the fills that I played at the end of the video where I was demonstrating the fill from the Tower Power song, where I was showing the 6-stroke roll thing I do. I'm not set up with the Logic this time. I was doing one of those, which is kind of like a 5-stroke thing. I guess I did some other fills. That's like a 6-stroke roll thing. By the way, these brushes are making the noise right now. These brushes are for another part of the segment, so I'm going to put these down over here for the time being, because I have a question about brushes. Mickey, last time I kind of said this, I'm not a great teacher until I explain what I do. A lot of the stuff I do just comes out of me, I got to be honest. I'm not Mr. Break it down, tear it apart. That's why I'm not on Instagram doing that kind of stuff, by the way. I'm more of I hear something and I play something kind of guy, and I've been doing it most of my career and most of my life. And then there's things that I practice but that come out, and that's like these rolly things. That 5-stroke roll thing. That thing comes out because I practiced it when I was a kid, apparently. And it just comes out sometimes in songs. But for the most part, when I'm playing music, I'm not thinking of playing my licks. I'm thinking about what fits the song usually. And I only have so much chops. So a lot of my chops are just repeated things, which, by the way, most of the great drummers do, by the way. A lot of guys say, Steve Gadd, he's played all his licks. He probably has. He would tell you he's played all his licks, but he just keeps mutating them a couple different ways, but he reuses the same stuff he's been working on for years. I think it's amazing what he does, and he's always super clean. But the idea of having like a bazillion linear fills in your back pocket when you're playing pocket music doesn't really make sense. So the linear stuff looks cool for the end of the night stuff, or the last big trash can ending. But for me, I've got my fills that I kind of do. I wish I had more, but I don't have the time to practice. So I don't know how much more I want to break this stuff down. I don't even know what I did at the end of that video. I was just goofing around as usual. So let me think about the famous Earl fills and do a special video for that someday. But it's really not an Ask Earl where it's going to really work. So Just thought I would say that, but thanks for asking the question, Mickey. I appreciate it. The next question comes from my friend AR Drummer Adam. Here's the question. It was on my Drum History podcast. 3 new questions, shout out. He said, question, have you ever had an extended period of time that you didn't play drums? And Adam, the answer to that is no. I've always played drums. It's like playing drums is like breathing for me. I need to be playing drums someplace, somehow, somewhere to kind of feel like my existence on the earth is right, that I'm at peace and harmony with myself. So even when I was on the road a lot, I would come home on the weekends and play drums for a couple hours because I needed to play, or I would get gigs. For years, I played lots of different pickup gigs in New Jersey. When I moved here, it got a little bit difficult. And then I started playing in churches for that exercise of needing to play. In 2000, when I moved here, I had a recording studio in my house in New Jersey for about, for about a year. But the recording studio in my house was ADATs, and I was really just learning how to record. And we had just finished and got the space together right before we moved and sold the house. So really all my recording I learned in my bedroom studio in Coral Springs. And I played on my wife's album, had to put it together with musicians I met down here in South Florida, playing at some churches and doing other things, other events. The bottom line to the whole thing for me is I never stopped. I always just kept playing. So no, extended period of time, not really. Is it healthy to do that? Maybe. I know a lot of guys that stop playing in their 20s and they come back in their 40s and they find it again for themselves when they have some cash and time and life hasn't taken over. My wife made it pretty clear to me, if you stop playing drums, you're not going to be Earl. And she knew that when I was 22 or 23, right at the crisis of we have a baby coming and I need to make more money. She said, go out and find a gig. So that's the famous line of my wife. And truthfully, that's what I did. I found gigs, found work, kept playing drums. So I never stopped playing. I think today I'm playing better than ever because I play a lot on the weekends. For me, Friday, late afternoon through Sunday is like I just play. And even though I'm not playing a lot of gigs in town because I don't really have time to be in a band during the week, which is what it requires, by the way, to play in a band. And what it also requires is getting gigs and playing out on the weekends. I don't have the desire to do that anymore. I play at church once in a while, and it's been a while since I played at church even. That kind of has gotten old for me too. And I have found a lot of satisfaction in playing for YouTube. So you guys and gals keep me going every week. And this is my outlet. Would it be nice to bring some musicians in here and play? Yeah, it would be. Especially when I do something that's a recording session or something. That's always fun. Today, doing Jim Wagy's song, it was just so fun hearing live musicians and the stems. And one of the things I did with his song was I basically took out things and I brought it down to a basic rhythm section. This track's got horns on it. It's got background vocals. I kept the lead vocal, the bass, the main guitar parts, and I muted everything else. And I kind of recorded with that in the click, and it was fun. That was a lot of fun doing that. I don't normally do that. When I do drum covers, I normally play over the drummer. I decided not to play Jim's parts, not because his parts weren't great. They are. They're perfect for the song. But I thought, if I'm going to do this, let me do me and keep it in the vein of the song and honor the song. So I honor the song, but I gave it my treatment. And that's because the song is not so well known that you guys would know any different. You probably wouldn't. You'd probably say, yeah, that's the vibe of the song. So I tried to keep it in. But he played some really cool stuff that I wasn't going to sit here and shed to kind of figure out. It was so dense with all the percussion and everything. I felt it needed less. So I played a little less. So I have 2 versions that one of them is going to come out at some point. I just finished mixing the second one, which was just a little bit more pocket, a little less stuff. The second one had a little more energy and a little more stuff on it. So I'm not sure which one's going to win. But one thing I do know is that I love playing for the music, and that's what made that fun. But no, I've never not played drums. So that's for the last 47 years, I keep playing until I can't play anymore. That's what I keep telling people. So thanks for the question, Adam. I really do appreciate it. Okay, so a question from Vince Gomez. He has two questions. I'm going to do the first one right here. He said, have you ever done a bass drum pedal journey video? By the way, I did do one about 5 years ago. I sent him the link, and I will probably put the link in the description of this video, where I just talked about my bass drum pedals. I talked about direct drives versus chain drives versus strap pedals. I like strap pedals, believe it or not. My Iron Cobras are flexi flyers, so they have straps on them. I have a double pedal and a single pedal, even though I'm not using the double pedal right now. This is a double pedal on this kit. I'm using it as a single, but it's got the straps on it, and I really like the feel of the strap. I got an old Camco with a strap. I also got an old Camco with sprocket, the Tama Camco. So I've got an old real Camco from the 60s that's been rebuilt with DW parts, and then I've got one that's a Camco from the Tama era, which is great, which I use on most gigs. Most gigs, that's the pedal that comes with me. And then I've got these two Iron Cobras that stay in the studio, which are beautiful pedals. If I was doing the right kind of gig out, I would take them. But for what I do out, the kind of gigs I do out, I bring lightweight hardware. And I have to be honest, that Tama Camco pedal is just perfect. Works for everything. So anyhow, that's the answer to that question. Now, the next question, and I think that's where we're going to start with the next question. The next question that came from Vince Gomez is, you also asked me this in the question. You asked for Ask Earl Anything. What pair of brushes would you recommend? Okay, so that's why I had the brushes up. I am a brush crazy person. I want to show you how crazy I am. So now I'm going to just start pulling out brushes here. This is my latest purchase. I think it might be one of the last pairs of Regal tip brushes. This is the Jeff Hamilton brush. When I started playing brushes, my first pair of brushes was a pair of Ludwig brushes, the red ones. It came with my drum kit, my Ludwig drum kit. But I quickly found the black Regal tip brushes, and I used them for years and years. And actually, I'm going to pull a pair out of here somewhere. They're pretty messed up. So I was looking for those old Regal tips last year sometime, and I bought these Jeff Hamiltons. Now, the Jeff Hamiltons are stiffer than the old Regal tips, and you can't buy the old Regal tips anymore. They're not around. The Jeff Hamiltons are not around either because Regal tip went out of business. So that's one pair. Very cool pairs. They're just stiffer. So what I've been using, and if I can find them, I've got two pairs of brushes I use a lot. One just ended up on the floor, so hold on a second. Maybe I'll cut, maybe I won't. This is the problem with having stuff everywhere. Kind of feel like a Terry Keating video, don't we, right now? All right, come over here, Mr. Brushes. All right. Let me pull out some brushes. Here we go. All right, so the brushes I use the most last few years, this is a pair of the Vic Firth Steve Gadd brushes with the bend. They get kind of ratty after a while. I got to pull out some pairs. But Steve liked that bend in the brush. I like these a lot. These kind of have a nice feel. They're very close to the feel of the Collado Regal tip brushes. This is an old Regal tip brush that I have. By the way, Notice this old Regal tip's got a little bit of a bend to it. I was doing the bend before Steve Gadd put it in his brushes. Now, he's not the guy that invented the bend. There's a drummer who used to play for Bill Evans, Canadian drummer. Oh my gosh, what's his name? He's a great drummer. Played for Bill Evans. If I think of it, I will find it and put his name in here. Great drummer. He's the guy that started doing this that I saw. And this has got a better bend than the Steve Gadd one does to me. I don't know. I did that with a pair of vice grips. You basically take the brush down like this, and you kind of just bend it a little bit. So I have a pair of the Regal tips with the bend. But these are really cool. The Gadd ones are really cool. Let's see what else I got here. I'm working my way back to you, babe. Burning love inside. Yes, I am. Working my way back to you. Gosh, I've got some crap here. These are some more of my brushes. So I'm trying to find the pairs here. Oh my gosh. Well, those I don't even have to show you, to be honest. But I'm going to be honest. This is the other brush, the other Regal tip with more bend right there. This is one of the pairs of Regal tips I had for 30 years now. This is the Clayton Cameron model. I've lost a lot of the brush. But this guy got a cool little metal thing at the end. They don't sell them anymore because Regal tip's gone. I loved Regal tip brushes. So that's the other Clayton Cameron brush. And I don't use it because I like the brushes to be wide, you know? This is a Vader brush, believe it or not. Vaders are actually very close to the old Regal tips, except for they're not a one-piece rubber thing. And the old Regal tips were one piece. This is a two-piece. But they have a feel like the old Regal tips. So if you like the old Regal tip brushes, I recommend you check out the Vader brushes. The other one that's really good, and this is the only Vic Firth brush I recommend the Gadd brush. I like the Gadd brush. But the brush that's really closest to the Regal tip, and everything for me has to be measured by the Regal tip brush. This is the closest in the Vic line to the Regal tip brush. This is the purple one. Now, Regal tip's got a white brush, which I hate. Matter of fact, I hate it so much I did this to the white brush. I have a pair of brushes that are designed with a stick to give me brushes and also the stick sound. For like some kind of country stuff I do. So I was doing some, I don't know, I think I was doing some kind of country thing. So I actually taped a stick onto these white Regal Vic First. Yeah, one of those. Anyhow, you get the idea. They're too stiff and they're beat up, but I beat the crap out of these. I use them on toms. It's got like the stick and the brush. Okay, Earl's crazy. That's one of my crazy things. Just get rid of that one for now. Got some other brushes. I have a pair of Regal brushes called Fat Cats that now that I know that Regal's out of business, I'm not getting rid of those either anytime. They're in my bag. These are the Polyflex Vader brushes. I don't really dig them. They're not as good as the Fat Cat. But if I needed to do them, I could. I think there's a huge difference between plastic and wire. These are the Polyflex. The cool thing is you can do so you can play bossies here. Anyhow, plastic. I have the other brush somewhere. This is a very unique brush. My friend Alan Levine gave me these. These are from a Trixon kit. I don't have the Trixon kit, but I got the brushes. And I got the other one too somewhere. Very interesting. Very quiet. Plastic's quieter, I think, than the, wow, these Regals, man. These Regals are cool. Little bent, a little weird. This one's perfect. But man, I haven't played these in a while. I love these old brushes. I was looking for these. This is what I was looking for when I got those Jeff Hamiltons. Anyhow, cool brush. If you're going to be into brushes, though, there's other types of brushes you might want to get into. This is a pair of brushes I bought back in 2003. They're called brooms. This was for I did a bluegrass album where they asked me to play drums. You don't really have drums in bluegrass. I've recorded 3 bluegrass albums in my studio. Only one that I played anything on, and I was doing one of those. I'm doing the train thing. These are pretty cool. They're fat. They also work on a cajon. I actually have a pair of the blue Vaders that are like this kind of brush, but it's not the straw. This is like brush that you buy for like a sweeping brush. These are really cool. They're called brooms. Beat up. By the way, the best plastic brushes are the ones that are really beat up. Which brings me to my other favorite plastic brushes, and I'm not going into my rods. These are considered like brushes, believe it or not. These are the Regal Tip Blastics, which they don't make these anymore either if Regal's gone. And if you notice, mine are a little gnarly on the top. I've been playing them for years. This is the newest of the bunch. I actually have a pair of new ones, and I have an old pair of old ones. And where's the other one? Oh, here's the other one. The most gnarly of the bunch is an old Blastic with the wood handle. I lost the other side of it. So I've got this. This is kind of the way these pair up these days. I broke the other one of these. Lost the other one of those. These kind of pair up together like this, and then I've got a pair of these that are brand new. So, anyhow, love these. These are, now everybody makes these, Vic's making all kinds of brushes now these days, but I don't know. When it comes to brushes, you can never have enough. I've got so many wooden rod type brushes, it's not even funny. Let me find this other pair that slipped by. This is a pair that my friend Alan Levine gave me too. I don't know who made these, but they're big, and that's. The problem with these for me is the handle is too thin. They're like a jazz handle. I actually like them to feel like a rock stick. So these are like thick like a rock stick. So anyhow, which brushes would I recommend that you can buy today? I guess the Vic Firth purples are definitely in the running, or the Vader. But my all-time favorite, if you can find them, are the Collado Regal Tip black brushes, the originals. They are probably the best brushes ever made. And as a drummer who's played them for years, I've had at least 5-7 pairs of them. I think I have 2 or 3 pairs left in my pile. They're the best. But the purple Vic Firths really work. The Gads are okay. I like the Gads. I like the Vaders. The Vaders are nice too. So it's all about figuring out what you want to do with it. If you're gonna buy the $40 Jeff Hamilton brushes, I think they're not the same. They're a little heavier. But that's my choices for brushes. And I do like playing brushes, as you all know. So I think that's why you asked me that question. This was on the song Misty. I think I was playing the Regal Tip brushes on that one, to be honest. So anyhow, thanks for asking the question. The next question comes from Hot Rod Tiki 200. And he asked, here's the question. Okay. My first kit was a Ruther concert tom kit by Pearl. Ruther was kind of like a made in Japan kit, I guess. I could pick between that and a Rogers kit. I'm just going to tell you picked the wrong one, by the way. But because there's lots of great concert tom kits you can buy cheap too today. Ludwig's. Actually, let me step that back. 10 years ago, you could find Ludwig concert toms really dirt cheap. But since the invention of eBay and Reverb, you can't find concert toms cheap anymore, and everybody wants them too. I bet if I put these concert toms up for sale, just as they are, and I was just to sell them all individually, I could get $200 or $300 each for each drum easily. So you figure 8 drums, or I got 10 drums, $300 a pop. I can make $3,000 on my concert toms. Tell me that's not crazy. I didn't pay that much for them, even with the holes the way they are. Guys are looking for these drums today. Now, how long that craze will go, I have no idea. But you're asking me what drum heads should I put on? It came with black dots. What other heads will work on those drums? Let's go back to the history of black dot heads on concert toms. Back in the 70s, Remo wanted to sell this head called a control sound head. I think the drummer that made the control sound head famous was John Bonham. No doubt about it. John Bonham had black dot heads on his orange Vistalite kit. The other drummer from the jazz side that really made black dots famous was Tony Williams. Tony Williams, with that yellow Gretsch kit, that huge yellow Gretsch kit, used black dot heads, clear black dots. So between Bonham and Tony Williams, black dot heads found a place. Now, black dot heads were really popular in marching drums. Ludwig started making a head called silver dot heads with a silver dot and a white. You could actually get the Remo black dots with a white mylar and a black dot on it. I had a set of Vistalites where I put black dots on it with 2 concert toms, an 8 and a 10. And then the other toms, the 12, 13, 16, had black dots. I eventually got black dots for the 8 and the 10, but originally they came with silver dots. So silver dots were different, but I could see why they wanted the black dots. And black dots were kind of a focused head. Pearl concert toms came with black dots. That was the standard head on concert toms in the mid 70s. That would eventually change, you know. What heads work on concert toms? I find pinstripes work very well, by the way. But I think Phil Collins is famous for using clear ambassadors. Now, clear ambassadors are not going to last on a drum that you're going to tune loosely and beat the snot out of. By the way, to get the sounds I get, that needs to be tuned, by the way. To get those sounds means I kind of keep them a little loose. I put a little muffling on them. I can tune them up, and if you tune them up, they got more of the timbali kind of vibe to them. I like them more punchy, and they kind of work in the DAW, in my Logic. So I kind of tend to tune them down lower. Mid-range works okay. High pitch is what you'd have to do once you get a thin head that gets a lot of dents in it. I have a set of clear ambassadors. They didn't last as long as I wanted them to. This is almost a year with the pins, and they're still working for me. I'm probably going to get some more time out of them, but I do have a set of clear emperors I could throw on, or I could throw the clears back on. I think there's a huge difference. I like the pins. You might want to try the EC2 heads on there, the Evans EC2s. I've never tried them, so I can't really say they would work. But I've been thinking about it. So that's the head I've been thinking, like, yeah, maybe. So I have to talk to a friend about that. But the EC2 clears would probably be really cool. I just don't know if they make a 6. I have a 6, 8. I got 10s, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I would need all of them. So the EC2s are kind of like pins. They're somewhere between a pin and a emperor kind of thing. Emperors would work too. Clear emperors would probably be cool too. Or coated emperors, they would work. Coated ambassadors would probably work. Hal Blaine played coated ambassadors on his concert top kit. So any of those could work. It depends on the sound you're going for. If you're going for that deep, punchy sound, probably clear emperors or the pins would be the direction to go. By the way, the old pins were deeper sounding. This is a 15, and this is an old stock 15 head. It's just thicker. I just beat the snot out of these bad boys on that track I just did. I gotta tune them up. But I always find this 15 has no problem getting to that low pitch, where I have a harder time getting this without the rumble in it. So the 16, because it's a little thinner. They started making thinner pins. So the pins are now actually a little thinner than they used to be. Maybe you dig that. If you're looking for like the ambassador, slightly less thick like an emperor, because Remo pins are actually supposedly one-ply heads. I don't know how that works with this little ring they got on there. Anyhow, long and the short of it, I dig pins. I recommend pins. That's it. I feel like I'm Dave Portnoy. The guy does One Bite Pizza, the One Bite Pizza app, and he does the pizza reviews. I've been copying his saying, by the way. My new saying for my drum covers is 1 hour. Everybody knows the rules, because that's what I do. I do my drum covers in 1 hour. By the way, I did the same thing with my friend Jim's song today. 1 hour is what I gave it. Now, it takes longer to produce it. It takes a little longer for there. But when you're giving yourself an hour time limit, you got to get it together fast. That's all I'm saying about that. So that's what I do. Yeah, it's pins. All right, my next friend is Continuum M Drums. I know his name sometimes. I have to look at his channel what people call him. I think he's from Germany, by the way. He asked a question, and I don't think he knows I'm going to answer this on Ask Earl. I think it was on Wonderful Tonight, Eric Clapton. He said, "Very nice cover, my friend, top notch." Of course, you played it. Is there a specific reason why you strayed? Why you stayed on the 16ths on the hi-hat instead of a shuffle? So let's talk about Wonderful Tonight. I just wanted to cover this because Wonderful Tonight is not a shuffle. It's actually one and a two and a three and a four and a one and a two and a three and a four and a one and a two and a three. It's a halftime. Halftime. It's not a halftime shuffle. It's not. That's a shuffle. Now it might feel like it's shuffle-y, but it's not a shuffle. It's not. Never felt that stiff to me. Some guys may play it that stiff. I always played it with a little bit of there's a swing factor in there, but it's definitely not swung, And I didn't play with one hand where I was doing. Matter of fact, for some reason, playing it in halftime with one hand doesn't even work for me right now. Doesn't even feel right to me. Like I'm singing the song in my head and I can't make it feel right because there's something that Jim Oldacre played on it that was somewhere in between swung and straight, and I get it easier with the two hands. I just wanted to tell you that it's definitely not swung. It's something 16th noti, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. And it's definitely not swung. So check out my cover of Wonderful Tonight. Anyhow, I think that's it. Check out Jim Wagy's channel, Freedom Music, Freedom Music Factory. Check out Drum History Podcast. Even if you didn't like the drum, the magazine thing, there's a lot of other cool things. Slingerland drums, Ludwig drums, Zildjian cymbals, Paiste cymbals, all kinds of cool stuff. And thank you all for asking questions. Hopefully you enjoyed my little journey into my brushes. I got a little crazy today. Maybe I gave you a little Terry Keating it with that whole thing, because I don't know if I'm going to cut it or not, so I might not. Anyhow, thanks for watching Ask Earl Anything. Your questions make the show. Please like and subscribe. All that good stuff. Check out my spring store. I am working on another design of the t-shirt that'll be cheaper. It won't be as colorful. It'll probably be a black with some words on it. Probably the words are on the back of the other shirt. Walk, breathe, rejoice, and play. So if I can tell you anything to do in life, play. Play a lot. Enjoy playing. Life is short. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye, everybody.